Most people think all debt is bad. That belief alone could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. And here's the uncomfortable truth about good debt versus bad debt that almost no one explains clearly. Some debt is quietly building wealth for you right now, and some debt is quietly draining it. The difference isn't whether you owe money. It's what that money is doing while you owe it. Think about two people. One borrows $30,000 to buy a house. The other borrows $30,000 on credit cards, buying things they've already forgotten about. 20 years from now, one of them has an asset worth more than they paid. The other paid back closer to $60,000 in total and has nothing to show for it. Same amount borrowed, completely opposite outcome. Stick with this video, and you'll know exactly how to tell the difference, what each type of debt actually costs you, and the one question you should ask before you borrow anything, ever again. Here's the part most people get backwards. They think good debt just means a small amount, and bad debt means a big amount. That's not it at all. The real definition comes down to one thing. Does this debt help you build something worth more than it costs you? Or does it just transfer your future money to someone else with nothing left over? Good debt has three characteristics. First, it finances something that holds or grows in value over time. Second, it comes with a relatively low interest rate. Third, it either generates income or increases your ability to earn income. A mortgage on a home you live in often checks all three boxes. A student loan for a degree that significantly raises your earning power can check those boxes too, though we'll get into when it doesn't. Bad debt is the opposite. It finances things that lose value the moment you buy them, often instantly, and it almost always carries a high interest rate. Credit card debt is the textbook example. The average credit card interest rate right now sits above 20% per year. That means a $5,000 balance you're only making minimum payments on will cost you roughly $2,700 in interest alone before it's paid off, and take over 4 years to clear. The interest rate is the clearest signal, but it's not the only one. And that's exactly where people make the most expensive mistakes, which is what we're getting into next. Let's start with the most common form of good debt in America, the home mortgage, because it's also the one that teaches you the clearest lesson about how borrowing can build wealth. When you take out a 30-year mortgage at, say, 6.5% interest, you're borrowing a large amount. And yes, you will pay a lot of interest over those 30 years. On a $300,000 loan at 6.5%, you'd pay roughly $383,000 in total interest over the life of the loan. That sounds alarming at first, but here's the tension. That number doesn't exist in isolation. While you're paying that mortgage, two things are happening simultaneously. Your home may be appreciating in value. U.S. home prices have historically risen around 3 to 4% per year on average. And each mortgage payment you make builds equity, which is essentially ownership stake in the property. You're not just paying a bill, you're buying an asset, one payment at a time. Compare that to renting. If you pay $1,800 a month in rent for 30 years, you pay $648,000 total. And at the end, you own nothing. Now, a mortgage isn't automatically good debt just because it's a mortgage. If you borrow more house than you can realistically afford, or you're in a market where prices are inflated, it gets complicated. But the principle is sound. You're using borrowed money to acquire an asset that builds value and replaces a cost you'd have anyway. That's the core logic of good debt. That same logic applies to student loans, but with a critical catch that changes everything, and it's next. Student loans might be the most misunderstood debt in the country. People either dismiss them entirely as bad, or they borrow recklessly assuming education always pays off. Both are wrong. Here's how to think about it clearly. A student loan is good debt if, and only if, it increases your earning power by more than it cost you. That sounds obvious, but watch what happens when you run the actual numbers. The median salary for a bachelor's degree holder in the US is roughly $65,000 per year, compared to about $40,000 for someone with only a high school diploma. That's a $25,000 annual income difference. If you borrowed $40,000 in student loans at a 5% interest rate and paid them off over 10 years, your monthly payment would be around $424. That's manageable when you're earning $25,000 more per year because of that degree. The debt is working for you. It's generating a return that dwarfs its cost. But here's the dangerous catch. That math only holds if the degree meaningfully boosts your income. Borrowing $100,000 for a degree in a field where the starting salary is $35,000 flips the entire equation. Now the debt is costing you more than it's giving back. And that's how student loans turn from good debt into a decade-long trap. The rule of thumb that financial advisors often use: try not to borrow more total in student loans than you expect to earn in your first year out of school. It's a rough guide, but it's a practical anchor when the loan paperwork is in front of you. Student loans have one more nuance. The interest rates vary widely, especially between federal and private loans. Federal loans come with built-in protections like income-driven repayment plans. Private loans often don't. That distinction alone can make the same loan amount feel very different 5 years in. But even the best student loan is still debt, and debt always carries risk. The question is whether the upside is worth it. And for some people, it absolutely is. For others, there's a smarter path. That brings us to the type of debt that straddles the line in a way most people never expect. Not all debt fits neatly into good or bad. Car loans are the classic gray zone, and understanding them will sharpen your instincts for everything else. A car loan isn't good debt in the wealth-building sense. A car is a depreciating asset, meaning it loses value over time, not gains it. The moment you drive a new car off the lot, it drops roughly 10 to 15% in value. By the end of year 5, the average car has lost around 60% of its original value. But here's where it gets nuanced. Sometimes borrowing for a car is necessary and reasonable. If you need reliable transportation to get to work and earn an income, that car is indirectly helping you build wealth. It's enabling your paycheck. In that case, a low-interest car loan is a practical tool, not a wealth destroyer. The trap isn't the car loan itself, it's the terms people accept. Stretching a car loan to 72 or 84 months to lower the monthly payment feels smart in the moment. Here's what that actually costs you. On a $35,000 car at 7% interest over 84 months, you pay roughly $8,700 in total interest. Worse, for the first 3 years, you're almost certainly underwater, meaning you owe more than the car is worth. If anything goes wrong, you're stuck. Compare that to a 48-month loan on the same car. You pay closer to $5,200 in interest and build equity in the vehicle much faster. That's a $3,500 difference just by choosing a shorter term. Personal loans are similar. A personal loan for a medical emergency at 10% interest is very different from a personal loan to fund a vacation at 24% interest. The question is always the same. Is this financing something that holds value or generates value? And can I afford the actual total cost, not just the monthly payment? That monthly payment trap is one of the most dangerous mental shortcuts in personal finance. And it's just as deadly when it shows up in what's undeniably the worst debt category of all, which is next. This is the section that matters most if you carry any balance on a credit card right now, because high-interest consumer debt is the single most effective way to stay broke, no matter how much you earn. Here's the uncomfortable math. Say you carry a $6,000 balance on a credit card at 22% interest, and you only make minimum payments, typically around 2% of the balance each month. At that pace, it will take you over 27 years to pay it off. And the total interest you'll pay across those years? Roughly $2,600. You borrowed $6,000. You paid back more than $16,000. And what did you get for that extra $2,600? Nothing. No asset, no income, no equity, just the cost of having borrowed money at a punishing rate. This is what separates bad debt from everything else. The interest rate is so high that it overwhelms any possible benefit. At 22%, your debt is compounding against you almost as fast as a well-invested portfolio compounds for you. You cannot invest your way out of 22% interest. The math simply doesn't work. The only strategy that beats high-interest debt is paying it off, fast, and in the right order. Most financial experts recommend the avalanche method, paying minimum payments on all your debts, then throwing every extra dollar at the one with the highest interest rate first. Once that's gone, you roll that payment into the next highest rate. Mathematically, this saves you the most money. Some people prefer the snowball method, paying the smallest balance first regardless of rate, because the quick wins keep them motivated. It costs a little more in interest, but if it keeps you on track, the best method is the one you'll actually stick with. Either way, until your high-interest debt is gone, it deserves every spare dollar you have. That's not a punishment. That's math working in your favor for once. Once the high-interest debt is cleared, something shifts. You have cash flow again. And that's when borrowing, intentionally and strategically, can actually start working for you instead of against you. Everything we've covered comes down to one question. Before you sign any loan document, ask yourself this: is the expected return on what I'm financing, in money, in value, or in quality of life, greater than the total cost of borrowing? That question reframes the entire decision. It stops you from just asking, can I afford the monthly payment? Which is the wrong question, because a low monthly payment just means you're paying for longer, and often paying more overall. A $250,000 mortgage at 6.5% interest on a home in a stable market. The expected return, appreciation, equity, stability, likely clears the bar. A $5,000 credit card balance at 22% to buy furniture? The furniture is worth half what you paid within a year, and the interest has already started compounding. That debt fails the test immediately. There are also costs that aren't purely financial. A student loan that funds a career you love, that gets you out of an unhealthy situation, or that gives you skills that open doors. Those have real-life value that a spreadsheet doesn't fully capture. It's okay to factor that in. Just do it honestly, not as a rationalization. And one more thing. Your credit score is directly tied to how you manage debt. On-time payments, low balances relative to your limit, and a mix of debt types all help your score. A strong credit score means you'll qualify for lower interest rates when you do borrow, which directly lowers the cost of good debt and makes it even more powerful. Managing debt well is its own compounding advantage. Let's bring it all together. Good debt versus bad debt isn't about the size of what you owe. It's about what the debt is doing. Good debt finances things that hold value, grow in value, or meaningfully increase your income. It tends to carry low interest rates. Mortgages and well-matched student loans are the clearest examples. Bad debt, especially high-interest credit card debt, finances things that lose value instantly and compounds against you at rates that are almost impossible to outpace. Car loans and personal loans live in the gray zone. They can be reasonable tools or quiet traps depending entirely on the interest rate and the terms you accept. The single most useful habit you can build is asking the total cost question. Not just the monthly payment, but the full amount you'll repay before you borrow anything. If you're currently carrying high-interest debt, that's your starting line, not a life sentence. Pick a payoff method, automate your minimum payments, and direct every extra dollar at the highest rate balance first. The faster you eliminate that drag, the sooner your money starts building instead of bleeding. Now that you understand the difference between debt that builds and debt that destroys, the next thing worth understanding is exactly how to get out of debt efficiently, the strategies, the order, and the common mistakes that slow people down. That video is right here, and it picks up exactly where this one left off. If this helped, subscribe to Plain Money so you don't miss the next one, and drop a comment below. Tell us, do you have any debt right now that you're not sure is good or bad? We read every single one.